Welcome to another episode of CMPAC Spotlight. And of course, if you all have been watching, you know that this is the show where we put a spotlight on our producers and the shows that they produce right here at Access 21. So tonight, I have a special guest for you, Miss Effie Hefner of Aging with Attitude. Welcome, Miss Effie.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be here.
Well, I'm so glad to see you because the show that you do, I think, is so cute and it is so informative.
Good.
And I do want to ask you, when did you start the show?
About, 2002.
Wow, okay. And so what led you to do Aging with Attitude?
There was a lady at the senior center that wanted to do a television show. She lived out of the county, so she was not able to do it.
Okay.
And I was on her board. And she asked me if I would be willing to do a television show for the senior center, and I told her yes, I would.
That is awesome.
And that's the way it started in 2002.
So talk to us about what some of the issues that you cover. What are they?
Anything.
Okay.
But especially things that are interesting and needed by older people. Usually it's someone that is that comes to be on the show. It's someone in the community that is connected with something doing with older folks. And so they bring whatever their organization has that they do for older folks, so we can put it on the air, and other people will be able to call them and get help.
That's really awesome, and it's so informative, as I was saying earlier, because, you know, a lot of people, they don't know about a lot of things that are available for our seniors in particular.
And even me.
Yeah.
Been in the business of trying to find enough people. Even I don't know a lot of the folks that I need to call.
So tell me about some of your experiences whenever you've been setting up the show. When you say, you know, sometimes you don't even know where to go or what to ask, how do you produce this show then?
Well, I talk to the folks that help do the show, and they will suggest somebody. Some of the people that I have on the show, they will suggest someone that would be able to come and do a show.
Okay.
So it's just a big variety of ways. Sometimes I'll just meet someone and they'll tell me what they do, and I'll say, oh, that's interesting. How about doing a show for Aging with Attitude? Okay. And so they'll come and do a show for us, and then sometimes that leads into somebody else that's interested in doing a show and telling what they do, and that's usually something to do with older folks that we're trying mainly, all audience of course, but mainly for the people that are 50 and over and things that they need to know as they retire.
That's awesome. It sounds like it's connecting the dots when you meet someone and then meeting them and talking to them about whatever is interesting to them leads to something else. So connecting the dots in order to help someone out in the viewing audience as well.
Exactly.
That's so great. That's awesome. Miss Effie, you mentioned that you were a volunteer here at Access 21?
Yes, years and years ago.
Okay.
Before I became a producer here, I came as a volunteer. And so I enjoyed very much being behind the camera. I much prefer that to being on the camera. Oh,
look at you, but you look so good on camera.
Well, I very much enjoy behind the camera. I've always enjoyed being a camera person.
Well, that's awesome.
So that was my favorite thing to do.
So why did you want to volunteer?
I thought it would be interesting to work at a TV station. Actually, years ago, I was on a show called Adventures in Pirates Cove.
Oh, yeah.
It was a children's show, and I was Mistress Effie on the show, and so I got to meet a lot of the mamas and dads, and the guests were little children, usually somewhere around 5 to 8 years old.
Okay.
And the show was around things that a fella called Captain Wendy, I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but he...
From you.
Okay.
I sure did.
Okay, he was one-legged pirate.
Okay.
That's the part he played, and he really actually did have only one leg, the other one was wood.
Wow.
So he was actually the star of the show.
Yeah, you shared a little bit about that. I'm so glad you brought it up because I think it's so interesting that, first of all, you say you prefer behind the camera, but you're on a show. You're like a little local celebrity.
Well, yes, I was on the show. I wore a big gathered black skirt all the way down to the floor, white blouse, and a little cap-like thing that fit on my head because I was called Mistress Effie, and my father was the innkeeper.
Okay.
So I was the daughter of an innkeeper in the show.
Now, I know we're talking about the show that you do called Aging with Attitude on Access, but that show, Adventures in Pirate Cove, that was on a network show, correct?
WBTV.
WBTV. Yeah, so that I bet that was so interesting. I don't recall it from when it aired. You know,
that was many, many years ago, honey.
Okay.
Yes, many years ago. I was in my 20s at that time.
Okay.
So, and I'm 85 now. So, so you can see how long ago that's been.
Well, I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that you did that. You had that experience, and then you came over here to Access 21 to volunteer, and then you've kept this show, Aging with Attitude, going, and been so informative and such a staple in the community.
Well, I plan on keeping Aging with Attitude through December.
Okay.
Then I'm going to turn it over to one of the crew members that I'm sure will do a great show. His name is Keith Dennis.
Okay.
Keith is one of the crew members now, and he said he thought that he would enjoy doing the show. So Aging with Attitude will continue after December.
That's wonderful. So
it'll continue on.
You're going to pass the baton.
Passing it on, because I think it has been a good show. It has offered a lot of good information to people that are older. So I'm looking forward to him taking over, and I feel sure that he will continue finding folks that will give lots of information to older people.
Well, I think so too. I mean, you know, we definitely love our seniors, love our elders. So much wisdom there, and so much experience that you can pour into us. And it's very appreciative. And I feel like the show is, although it may cover issues that face elders, it's for everybody.
Right.
I think everybody can benefit from that. Because what about caregivers?
That's right.
And people who have older parents or just older family members and those in the community that they really, you know, care about and want to pass on information that they may not see.
And a lot of times we've had caregivers on, and some that receive the care.
Right.
Lots of things that went on with the older folks we've tried to have on our television show.
Yeah. Well, this is great, Miss Effie. I know I was a caregiver for my uncle before he passed away, and it was nice to be able to spend that time with him. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot of things that I probably could have learned from your show had I been in the area at the time and been able to watch your show. But he was in Minnesota, and I think that what you're saying about caregivers, and if you are talking about different things that apply to them, is excellent.
Very much so.
Yeah. You were a caregiver yourself, weren't you, for your mom?
I was, for, excuse me, for about 3 months.
Okay.
Excuse me. Mother was a wonderful, sweet folks. Would have loved her.
Yeah.
She was a quiet person, very sweet smile. Always, you couldn't do anything for Mother without getting an appreciation. She was always very appreciative of everything that you could do for her. That made you want to do more and more and more.
Oh, that's so sweet, Miss Effie.
She was a wonderful mother. She died at 98.
Wow.
She was, and her last year, the last year of her life, probably the last 2 years of her life, she came and spent 2 weeks with me.
Okay.
And then she would go to my brother's and spend 2 weeks with him. But during the 2 weeks with me, we would go up to her home. It was not sold. We would go up to her house and we would spend 2 or 3 days and then come back down to Charlotte. Then she would go to my brother's And he lived close to Morganton, where Mother's home was.
Okay.
And he would take her up there almost every day.
Wow.
And let her spend the time in her home until she died. The last 3 months of her life, she actually lived with me.
Okay.
Because she needed care all the time.
Wow.
But she never got to where, probably the last 2 weeks of her life, she spent mostly in bed. But other than that, her motto was, you get up and at least you go and sit in a chair. You don't lie in the bed all day, Effie.
Wow, she sounds like, she was one of those moms. She had attitude.
She
aged
had
with
an attitude.
attitude.
She did. She aged with an attitude, and a wonderful attitude.
That's great.
If she could do it, she did it. Mm-hmm. And if you wanted to do it for her, she would say, now, Effie, I can do that myself.
Wow.
So I hope that if I live to be 98 years old,
Yes, ma'am.
that I will be like Mother was, that I will continue to say, I can do it myself.
I love that, and I'm sure you will.
Well, I sure
believe
hope
that.
so.
I believe that has passed down to you.
I'm gonna hope so.
Absolutely. And sitting here talking to you about that, it reminds me of my auntie. She passed at 97.
Wow.
And I used to go and sit with her a lot, and she loved fish dinners. She loved them. And it would be best if we could cook it ourselves, but sometimes I would go and just pick it up from a restaurant. And there were things that she liked to cook to add to our meal. Mm-hmm. And so I remember when I was at her house once, and she goes, now, about like your mom, she says, now I can do that. She said, I'm just old and I'm just slow, but I can do it. Mm-hmm. So she had an attitude too.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
It would be nice if all of us could die, not die, but before we die, that we would say we can do it ourselves.
Right.
Everyone's not like that.
Yeah.
True. There's some that even when they're able to, they still want to be waited on. But I am so glad that my mother was one of those that says, I can do it myself, Effie. But thank you.
That's so nice.
Yes.
She was polite about it.
She was polite about it. She was sweet about it. Never saw my mother that I didn't think she was sweet.
Oh, that's so nice.
Except sometimes if she decided she might need to spank me for something.
Still?
But I didn't often get a spanking when I was growing up. As a matter of fact, I don't remember many at all.
Okay.
But
you were a good girl.
She knew when Mother told me something, I knew that she meant it.
That's really awesome.
Yes, and that's one of the problems with children today. A lot of times, I think we parents tell our children what we're going to do if they do so and so, and then we don't follow through.
We don't follow through.
Yes, and that's not a good idea.
Well, now, Miss Effie, if you haven't covered that topic on your show, that sounds like a good topic, especially before you pass the baton.
Well, I've already passed the baton.
Oh, well, Mr. Keith will have to just take that up then, because some of these parents, before they get to the point where their children have to take care of them, they need to teach their children the right things.
Right.
Yeah. So I want to know a little bit about maybe some of the responses that you've received from the viewers. Have they contacted you or given you some feedback about different shows?
Do you know that is the one thing that really disappointed me?
Oh.
We had wonderful shows, wonderful guests that gave lots of information, but seldom ever did I ever hear from anybody.
Oh.
I don't know if we didn't get enough audience or what, but it was a shame because we had wonderful guests on, people that had great information for the people in the community.
Yeah.
But seldom ever did I hear from someone that actually watched the show.
Well, you know what? I'm sitting here thinking that it could be that viewers watched and they may not have given you any feedback, but they did appreciate the information.
Well,
they
I'm sure.
applied it. Yeah.
I'm sure that they did.
Yeah.
And especially if you were an older person, which we were trying to reach, they may have been a little bit reluctant to call and talk about it.
Well, see, that's a good point. They may have been reluctant to talk about certain things.
Exactly.
Because let's talk a little bit now about what are some of those things that you may think be a little bit personal, and maybe it was good information to get out, but people may have not wanted to talk about them openly, like from the viewership, from the viewers. What are some of those topics?
Well, I can't think of any topics that I don't think would have kept people from calling, because they were headed directly, and most times, to people who were older. It could be that they were just reluctant to pick up the phone and call.
Okay.
There's a lot of older people because that's been several years ago. A lot of times older people just kept their mouth shut.
Okay.
Younger people have a tendency to open their mouth and say things.
Okay.
But older people, a lot of times back then, just didn't speak out.
That's some wisdom I think a lot of us can use, though.
Well, true.
Yeah.
True. We do need to speak out.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Miss Effie, one of the things that I also noticed about your show was the backdrop, the unique backdrop that you all have. It's an element of things in Charlotte over the years, different things like the trolley. And I know there is that sign that I think is uptown across from the Knights Theater, or in the park. And it has all the different directions, the pointers, the going to different parts of the city of Charlotte. But anyway, it's just a lot. And Queen Charlotte, her statue, where did that come from?
It was the dream of one of the fellows that was on the television, that he was not on the television show. He was behind the show, behind what was going on.
Okay.
When I became the producer of the show, the makings of the show actually was by Debbie Snyder of the Senior Center. And she had someone that worked on the backdrop.
Okay.
And did all of that stuff that you would see on the show. So I had nothing to do with that wonderful backdrop. It was just brought in and put up for Effie's show. So that was great.
It is great, and it's, like I said, it's very unique. We keep it in our proper room because it's grandfathered in.
Good.
And but it's for your show, for Aging with Attitude only.
But when Aging with Attitude goes off in December, you should keep it and use it.
Absolutely. We would love to. Thank you so much for what you've been doing, what you've done.
Well, thank you. It's been a pleasure doing Aging with Attitude. I have met a lot of nice people in our community that work with older folks. Some that work with younger folks, but usually had something to do with the older generation. And it has been a blessing to me. As I was younger at the time I started the show, and now as I'm older, at 85, then I can appreciate all the help that we were given, and all the help that we gave people that were watching the show.
You know what, Miss Effie, you said something just now that made me think of something else to ask you when you talked about some of the younger people. And of course, talking to you being 85, you've seen a lot. And I wonder if you could share with us some of the things that you feel like you have seen and experienced being here in Charlotte, and just in life, that were very significant in your life that you want to share with us.
Well, I guess one of the important things was when out in the community that I did, other than my church work, coming to Access 21 to do a television show kind of opened your eyes of what goes on in the community.
Right.
But the part of the community that I dealt with was a wonderful part of the community because they were older people.
Okay.
And they came willingly to give advice on the things that they knew or did in life. And that was the thing that I felt the show did a lot of, was to show actually what older people can do. You don't have to sit home and do nothing.
Absolutely.
Or watch TV all the time.
Right.
There's things in the community to get out and do that's important.
Yes. Well, that's really good because, yes, the community has a lot of things out there. And when you came up from, like in your teenage years and your young years, when you were on WBTV, on Adventures in Pirates Cove, can you tell us a little bit about what was happening in the community regarding relations between different ethnicities and some of the things that you saw? Maybe, I don't know if you were working in church at that time, maybe some of the different things that were going on that you witnessed that may have changed your mind about different things?
Guess I must be a very dull person because I've always had a wonderful outlook on life, and I always looked for the best. And I didn't. If it was not the best, I felt sorry for the person I was looking at.
Yeah.
So, I have had probably one of the most wonderful lives as you could have. My life has been peaceful in most cases. If I've tried to do something, I've succeeded. If there was someone I liked, I was able to get liked back. I guess my life has just been too smooth for a lot of people. But my life has been a pretty smooth thing, other than a couple of divorces in the meantime.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that is great that it's been smooth. And maybe you were able to be on the outside looking in, looking at different things that happen in the community. Because I'm sure here in Charlotte, because you're from Charlotte.
I'm actually from Morganton, North Carolina.
From Morganton, but North Carolina is home. And I was talking with some other guests about some of the things that we've experienced in our country, and you talk about in our state and in our community in the South. And I know that there's different things that different communities have experienced. And so maybe if you feel like your life has been pretty smooth, maybe that wasn't something that you experienced, any volatility, maybe looking like segregation or desegregation. Tell me about that.
Your color doesn't matter. Not to me. I've had some of the most wonderful black friends. Some that worked here at the TV station, some that even helped me with my show, and some I helped with their show.
Yeah.
I have not had any problems between me and any race. I am a person that I try not to judge anyone. If I meet you, usually I will like you because I look at the side that's good. I don't know how to explain that. I don't look for the bad in people. I look for the good in people. And I think if more people in this world would try to look for the good and not the bad, that we would be a much more peaceful world.
I like that, Miss Effie. And you were talking about your mom and some of the things that she passed down to you. It sounds like that's one of those things.
Mother was a wonderful, sweet person.
Yeah.
And she always tried to help the people in her community. When she was in her 80s, she was still baking cakes to take to her friends that were sick, or someone in the community that she knew was sick. Maybe not particularly a friend, but just someone maybe in her church that she knew. She would bake a cake and take it to them. So she was always a giving person.
Yes, that's awesome. Aging with attitude.
She certainly aged with a wonderful attitude.
That's so sweet.
From the time she even got sick, her attitude was, I'm all right. You don't need to do that. I can do that myself.
Yeah, that's so sweet. And I was mentioning to you once before about some other things that you reminded me of. And your mom, there's a gentleman, he's about 91 in the community. And I met him last year. And he reminds me of Prince Charles, like an older version of Prince Charles. And he's the sweetest little gentleman you ever did want to meet. And I feel like the two of you would just get along so well. His name is Mr. Charles Parker. And so he also is aging with attitude.
Good.
And still has so much that he likes to share with the community.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So, I mean, all the seniors in our community really have something to offer, and I look forward to continuing to talk with him and you, and of course, watching the show. But before I let you go, now I'd like to know, what is the next adventure for Miss Effie?
My next venture, well, I have not decided on any next venture other than to continue my church work.
Okay.
And to do what I can. My main thing that I do now is I try to call the folks in my Sunday school class, and if they're out of Sunday, call to make sure that they're okay. And most of the time they are. It's just that maybe they do have a slight cold or something. They just didn't feel up to coming, but that's my main thing that I do these days. Is I just sit down and call people that are not coming to my church anymore. That's in my class,
Right.
and I let them know that I miss them and that they are missed in the church.
Right.
So that's my main thing these days.
Well, that's awesome, Miss Effie, especially during this time of COVID. You know, at the time of this taping, you know, we're still dealing with the pandemic.
Right.
And it's wonderful that you are checking on those who have been considered high risk, and that you're here as well.
Well,
Yep.
I am delighted that I have not caught the stuff. And have you had any problems at the TV station with it?
Well, we have actually had to revamp everything here with the hand sanitizer. We did some renovations that would accommodate social distancing and different things like that. So, you know, we're pressing through as well.
Good. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can see the social distancing
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
'Cause we used to use a table about like this, and you were
Exactly.
sitting close. But this is
Exactly.
a good idea.
It's a good idea.
Yes, because you got to be safe.
Well, Miss Effie, thank you so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And before we go, if you'll tell everyone what time and what days the show airs, it'd be great.
It's on the second and third Saturdays of the month at 8:30 in the evening. So if you get a chance, tune in. You just might see me on this time, which will be the first time ever, I think, that I've been on the show.
And we also want to thank you so much for joining us for this episode of CMPAC Spotlight. Continue to tune in to all of the shows that you see here on Access 21, whether you're watching on cable or you're watching on video on demand. So check us out, and we look forward to hearing from you, and we'll see you next time on CMPAC Spotlight.